Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at 9:31 a.m. Eastern Time. I don't know if anyone caught this. I was tweeting it up the wazoo yesterday. But Ann Vandersteel, as you guys know, if you see my Twitter, I did a nice scope with her a month ago or so when I was down in Florida. Met up with her, been working with her very closely. She's an amazing woman, so smart, brilliant actually. And she is sitting here on the screen with two former intelligence officials who were instrumental in alerting the Trump transition team that they were being spied on. And this interview she's done with these guys is, I'm like, my mouth was hanging open the entire time. The information that these two gentlemen shared, which we're going to detail here today and kind of fill in with some open source backstory, is mind-blowing information. So with that, grab your popcorn, sit back, and I never ask you guys to do this, but please share the heck out of this video, like sincerely, okay? Because what you're gonna hear is gonna blow your mind. I guarantee it. So in the beginning of this interview, they talk a lot about their, about background and they're working, it appears to me, they're working with Bill Binney on this. And what they're doing is basically a project that they're going to unveil the website for on Friday, which appears to be, from this interview, a repository of open source information to back up all of the Spygate claims that have been made, or the Spygate story, which it's like WikiLeaks light. And I'm just floored by this interview. Just floored by it. I know I'm talking a lot and I'm not letting you hear the interview. But hold on a second. I'm going to play some for you. We'll just pick it up from here.
Venues, but did give you capability to have a system that would allow you to basically see and hear what anybody was communicating in the nation and around the world through the Five Eyes program, which also has been publicized. But then after that, after 2001, after 9/11, General Hayden and a couple defense contractors proliferated a platform that would collect and store the information. Bill Binney had a program called Thin Thread that was more targeted on people's life patterns and also the vicinity they were in, and would have been a much more streamlined program to allow information to be collected much more efficiently than the cumbersome method. A lot of people said that the absence of having Bill Binney's program is what really allowed 9/11 to happen.
So let's clarify for the audience, Joshua, Bill Binney, who is he?
Bill Binney really is a grandfather of this endeavor, which, as you were speaking about before, Ann, is something that was perfected over the Obama era in a Stasi-like control. If you were to go back in time, if we were to reverse this, there's many bad actors over many wars that we have fought and won that would love to have this kind of power in their hands over their population. So Bill Binney is a great American hero in my eyes, one who has way more in-depth knowledge than even those who I'm not going to name, but movies have been made about. This is a man who has intelligence way beyond many that I've met, and went through the algorithms and what it is today, that the information that they're utilizing and the technology we're using today. And also, let's think through how much technology has also advanced forward in the past 2 decades, and think through the technology differences. And Bill Binney was already there, understanding where technology was going and what we had to do to take hold of it.
So very clearly, the technology was built decades ago. Robert, you were part of the foundation of the technology. Gentlemen like Bill Binney, who also worked at the NSC, it was able to make the technology more sophisticated. But somewhere along the line, there was changes made to the use of this technology. Of course, we have our Fourth Amendment, which we all hold near and dear, to protect our rights to privacy. Somewhere along the line, the use of this technology was usurped and was turned against ordinary American citizens.
Yes, that's right, Ann. And this is an important point. The intelligence community has been unchecked for decades. A lot of people refer to it as a fourth branch of government, and that's really true. It's not only a fourth branch of government, it's the controlling branch of government. And before, I used to have the mindset also that that was necessary. And we want to be careful here, too. I want to say another disclaimer, and that is we don't want to go so far that we completely dismantle the intelligence agency, because there's some very bad people out there. We need to have covert operations. We need to have a certain amount of secrecy involved. But the process in communicating that to the oversight areas of government is where it fell short before. However, the system is not being used just to help our guys and gals around the world in different theaters. The system is being used now to promote different politicians' agendas.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem that we have right now. It has gone way off the rails, and we've seen that throughout the Obama administration. Lieutenant General Flynn, a great patriot, came out. And by the way, he's a Democrat. In fact, most of the people that have come out in the previous few years are Democrat, because the Obama administration purposely put the most liberal, left-leaning Democrats, and Democrats certainly have had a great role in this and helping bring this to light. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of ironic, because you have the Democrats from the intel community that are being investigated by Republicans from the DOJ when you have a Republican president. So that tells you just how established the establishment is.
So can you speak, Joshua, to a specific incident where this technology has been leveraged to take somebody down?
So basically, Joshua now goes in and he tells his story about being overseas in Yemen and stuff like that. And that's at the 13 minute mark, which you guys will listen to. I just wanted you guys to understand the caliber of people we're dealing with here. These are people that are they're no slouches. These are not just two guys off the street, okay? A lot of people are like, well, who are these guys? Yeah, these guys are important, and you're going to find out a lot more about why in the coming days, because this is just the beginning from what I understand. So let's continue listening here. We're going to get into when exactly the Trump transition found out about Halper, okay? This is something that even blew my mind. We're going to learn in a second, right out of these fine patriots' mouths, that they were responsible for telling the Trump transition team on November 1st, 2016, before the election, that they had infiltrators inside of the campaign. Trump has known Stefan Halper since then. Blew my mind. Let's listen.
To Steal Truth, I'm Ann Vandersteel, joined with Robert Carone and Joshua Macias. We've been talking about the intelligence community and how they have been weaponized basically for political gain over so many years, but most recently with the Obama administration trying their best to keep Hillary Clinton in power, or to get her to power, so much so that they've created some incredible stories. We're going to unearth that, but let's start with a very important date, November 1st, 2016. These two gentlemen were down in Norfolk, Virginia with some other folks from the intelligence community, and Robert received a phone call, but I want Joshua to pick up the story and set the stage.
Sure. So thank you, Ann. We were there in Norfolk on that day discussing the needs of voter integrity and other things at the time. And understanding the gravity of the phone call, which Robert received.
Hold on, I'm stopping it for a second. I'm sorry. They were working very hard on voter integrity at the time. These intelligence community guys were behind the scenes working to make sure the election wasn't rigged. That in and of itself is massive, okay? These were the guys behind the scenes making sure that they weren't screwing with the election, that your vote counted. And they're going to unveil more about that too. They talk about it a little bit in dribs and drabs throughout this interview. But these are the guys down in Norfolk, Virginia with their team of like 120 intelligence professionals or intelligence community, professionals from inside all five, CIA, NSC, NSA, FBI, former guys who were fed up with the nonsense and stepped forward to band together to try and save this sinking ship, okay? Amazing. These people, like this, I'm sounding excited. It's because this is information we've never had, and they're spilling, and they're going to spill more. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt this.
Immediately, Robert headed his way up to New York, and I myself made a phone call to an admiral that I knew would be able to handle that sensitive information and get it to the right people. Immediately, we split off and we went to a task to make sure that this information got out, and it was very troubling to me, having been a part of the volunteer services and being able to been out there with numerous people. I was appalled at what I had heard and how things were going to fruition.
Okay. So you're appalled. Mm-hmm. Robert jumps the plane to New York. Robert, what exactly did you get? What was that phone call you received? What were those words you heard that shocked you into reality of, wow, we have a real problem?
I was told that there were 3 bad actors that had infiltrated the Trump campaign and that they were working with people from the UK, bad actors from GCHQ and MI6, and also people from Russia, non-Kremlin Russia, I may add, that were associated with an oligarch. And
Deripaska.
And immediately I got on a plane. I flew to New York that evening. I met with a senior Trump campaign representative and gave him the information. One of those people on there, on the list, was Stephen Halper. So I am
Stephen Halper was one of the people considered to be a spy in the Trump campaign.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And at the time.
So just to clarify, November 1st, Stefan Halper's name was given to a high-ranking member of the Trump campaign team. November 1st. Think about this as we piece together the story of how the Trump presidency has handled the rollout of Spygate. Think, he already, we say it all the time. He knows everything. He knows it all. He does know it all, guys. This proves it. If not, I know that Admiral Rogers went down there the 20th. And the transition team moved, and we know all that. We're going to get to that. They're going to speak to that as well. I just want to interject here to make you guys understand. November 1st, the Halper name had already been floated, along with 2 other individuals. We're going to get initials for one, and the other one remains unnamed.
Time, we had no idea that our own U.S. government had been paying him through the Office of Net Assessment to do this. At the time, we thought, okay, somehow the Trump campaign security didn't keep these guys out. Somehow they were able to infiltrate. There was another person, initial CS, and then a third person I can't talk about right now. But I went up there. I visited with the senior Trump official, gave him the information about Stephen Halper and also about another gentleman working there in their IT that I was most concerned with at the time. Because there, I was told, were transmissions coming out of the Trump Tower from that particular person's devices.
Can we say his name?
Initials CS.
Initials CS. Now listen, we're going to go back to this interview in just a second, but I want to make everybody aware and just remind you, he's saying that somebody on Trump's IT team was an infiltrator who was sending out emails. He was basically co-opting their internal IT department. And I want to remind you guys of something that happened. There was a big hubbub, if you don't recall. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's ongoing Russia investigation has obtained thousands of emails sent and received by Trump officials during the president's transition, a move that a lawyer for Trump has decried as illegal. The emails concern 13 top Trump officials, and their correspondence includes national security discussions and chatter about Trump's possible international goals. Mueller's team reportedly obtained the emails not directly from Trump's transition team, but from the General Services Administration, a separate federal agency that stored the emails and whose facilities were used by Trump's transition team. The move has prompted Corey Langafer, the general counsel for Trump's transition, to accuse Mueller of using unlawful methods. Langafer said Saturday that he sent a complaint to 2 congressional committees over the GSA's unauthorized disclosure of materials. Do you guys remember when that happened? I sure do. Everybody was like, well, how the heck did he get these? It was a big deal. A big deal. This, to me, is a big piece of this puzzle that we didn't have the information before just now to answer. So if Mueller is dealing and peddling in stolen transition team emails and these guys are coming forward to let us know, holy moly. That's why I don't think people understand. I sound like a kid on Christmas. It's crazy. I don't think people understand how important this interview actually is. And we're going to get back into it, and I'm going to stop blabbering. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you have Stefan Halper, who has been outed publicly, and another gentleman that was sending out signals, working in the IT department with the initials CS.
That's correct.
Okay.
And more than just signals, Ann.
More than just signals? What else were they sending, signals. Joshua?
There's information that was getting out there that should not have been. It was a clear breach. And we saw how it was affecting not only those in the field, but also the campaign itself.
And nothing bad, I might add. That's very important. The Trump campaign was doing absolutely nothing wrong.
Nothing at all.
And these people, they were able to get through the Trump security because our U.S. government was helping them. They were even referring them. And the fact that some of these people were referred through the RNC and through the U.S. government, and that instead of alerting the president, which would have been the normal protocol, the normal course of action, what they did instead was they were actually behind it, sending spies into the Trump campaign, which is unheard of.
So listen, let's talk about that for a second, okay? Let's talk about that. Who became chief of staff? Reince Priebus. Where is he from? The RNC. That's where he came from, right? Keep your enemies close. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. What was Reince Priebus's role in the James Comey memos? Do we remember? Let's think about it. His role was to ask if there was a FISA warrant on General Flynn. I'm just saying. Lots of dots possible dots anyway, being tied up here. Okay, if you think about the story. He's saying right now that, obviously during a presidential transition, there are people that are, like the previous administration helps, the government helps, they try to refer people over. And I just want to bring your attention to something pretty interesting. Let's remember, okay? November 11th, Chris Christie out. Mike Pence takes the reins. Chris Christie out. Lots of people shuffled out of the transition team. Big shakeup. Bridgegate was the excuse. It's interesting. Think about that for a second. Chris Christie on November 11th, the transition just goes nuts. Whoosh, out. Now we know what happened on the 20th. We know we moved to Bedminster. Let's just keep listening to this interview.
Let's just make sure we get the paper trail clear here. We have the Office of the Net Assessment that was paying Stefan Halper, I believe it was $1 million to infiltrate the Trump campaign.
A lot more than that, actually, from reports that I viewed.
Where did that money go? Went from the Office of Net Assessment, or O&A, through to where to get to?
Well, instructions were given from the FBI to the Office of Net Assessment.
Okay.
And there's other things, depending on what's been public and what hasn't been made public, that I should probably quit right there. But the fact that our U.S. government participated in that's something that's a very important part of this whole equation. I mean, there's plenty of smoking guns in all different areas, but this particular area that Joshua and myself, the admiral that Joshua communicated with, another person from a former NSA person, and several others were privy to.
A former NSA person. I wonder who that could be. Mike Rogers, Admiral Rogers. Just saying.
We were all shocked, like Joshua said. Mm-hmm. There was actual election rigging going on by the former administration.
Do we have, Joshua, any evidence as to who in the FBI was giving the directive to pay through the Office of Net Assessment to pay Stefan Halper?
I don't know if that's been made public yet.
I don't know if we would want to discuss that now. Ann. But what I can say for sure is that the information that they were taking was being used and be a total waste, fraud, and abuse situation. The fact that information was piercing through the Trump campaign, pulled out and utilized for a weaponization in a political realm is what just totally threw us a loop.
What he means is basically the spies are there, they're planting fake evidence, quote, trying to ensnare people, and then the intelligence community and Mueller is using that stuff that was planted there by the administration, by the Obama administration, in order to prosecute Trump. It's disgusting, and these guys are just sick of it. They're sick of it.
We're shocked beyond measure to know that they were doing this. This was putting people's political lives on the line that had done nothing wrong. People, average Americans that were coming up, wanting to step forward to be a part of the process, in a way that we've never seen. That's been unprecedented. Vietnam veterans who haven't voted since they left for Vietnam coming out because they wanted to support a candidate that they believed was speaking for them as well. We're talking about people who had been working in blue-collar jobs in Ohio, steel workers, coal workers, and then those who had stepped up as volunteers, all their names, information being placed out there and not being used in a good light.
What he's basically saying right there, which they don't get into detail on, is that the Obama administration was stealing, from what I understand anyway, from listening to this, the Obama administration was stealing the information of everyday Americans who were voting for Donald Trump and doing nefarious things with it. What? I cannot wait till she has these guys on again.
Not being used in a good way.
That's right. Now, let me say something else too, Ann. There's a national emergency going on. That's what your viewers need to know. This emergency is that this weaponization of our departments, DOJ, FBI, IRS, as we saw, it was also weaponized to attack people from the Tea Party, has been going on by the former administration. Mm-hmm. That structure exists. It has existed. The wrong people were at the helm, and that's what caused this debacle. There was no Russian collusion. Joshua and I were there. So was the other 119 people that have come public in our group, and hundreds of others that are probably coming public pretty soon here. There absolutely was no Russian collusion that any of us ever witnessed during the Trump campaign. But there was a significant amount of misdirection and misinformation coming before the inauguration and then afterwards. And there's also a number of areas that where crimes were actually committed by members of the former administration, by FBI representatives. And this is what's very hurtful, because our ethos, it's very difficult for me to get up here and for anyone, regardless of what area of intelligence or law enforcement they're in, to say anything about any of the organizations, because that is the United States. Mm-hmm. But these people, they're not the United States. These people are serving themselves. They're serving foreign interests. And that's why so many of us have grouped together. And really, Ann, you're at a very pivotal point here, because really no one else. There's been a handful of people that have come out. There, some together, some individually, but none of them from these areas that were deep into these different organizations. And really, that's something that we should talk about briefly too, if you don't mind. There's really two sides of the intelligence community. There's unreported assets or dark ops, and then there's the people that go over to Dolly Madison and through the doors of the different buildings and do the analysis on the computers, all of whom are patriots. Mm-hmm. The ones that are in unreported assets or dark ops, though, a lot of us that have been in those arenas have witnessed the different interaction between departments, because the other people that are more on the conventional side see a very narrow, compartmentalized view of government. Right. And they don't really see what's going on behind the scenes. We do. And never before has this many people from unreported assets come out like they are now, and giving more and more evidence. And there's a whole lot more that are going to come out. And listen, let me say something else too, please. On the thing with John Brennan. John Brennan, a person who voted communist, okay, right, was a head of our CIA, which tells you right there how there is such a directed effort by the Obama administration to find people that had these far left extreme radical views. And it's top-down management in any organization. Right. And the people that I've talked to, both formally with the different agencies and also hearing from people that have, not me directly, but have talked to some of the people currently working, everybody's on President Trump's side. Just a very few that are afraid because they're in the communication loop aren't coming forward. But I think with the information that we're going to be presenting on this report for the president, that we're going to have a website open this week for your viewers, and that's actually specifically made for the president to pull down information, and also for his lawyers and for members of the NSC who are going to be able to get all this evidence from all these different departments online at one central location, evidence on demand.
Right.
That's going to change the whole thing. And this is the date today, September 3rd, Ann, and you're leading the charge here by publicizing
Let's
it.
get the information to the people. Let's get it out there.
Whoa! I can't even contain myself. Guys. Okay. All these former intelligence assets, covert and, normal, walking around every day through the doors, have banded together. September 3rd, yesterday, was the first day that they had really put a public face out there with Ann. The repository will be available this week for everybody, and there will be, if you listen to the rest of the interview, a special login for the president to go in and pull this information down. They're going to be making all of this available for the people. I think, honestly, this is a crossroads that will definitely blow Spygate wide open. Like, the second that I can get my paws on that stuff, and like Rex and all the guys that do Stealth Jeff and everybody that does this open source work, Undercover Huber, all these guys, what's going to happen, right? When we're allowed to take a look at this information and put it together and present you guys evidence and work. What's going to happen? There's a lot more in here that I want to get to the end of this, where they talk about a certain executive order. And then I'm going to leave the link for the rest of you guys to watch this whole interview. It is a stunning interview. I've watched it 4 times now. I got permission from Ann to do this, so I'm not like stealing. She just wants this out there. She wants this information out there. I have a little voice. You guys have a bigger voice than I do. I really want you to share this video. I want you to get these guys the eyes that they need to keep doing this and keep moving forward, and the attention that they deserve for being so brave to come and put their faces out there like this. This is the gentleman. You're looking at the gentleman that first got the call and hinted he was working with Rogers to go and let Trump know that his campaign had been spied upon on November 1st. November 1st. I'm going to fast forward to this executive order, which is super important. Super important. And I'm going to show you some things that I found about it.
The charge here by publicizing.
Let's get the information to the people. Let's get it out there. Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about, though, is the timeline here. Joshua, back in October, we saw some action being taken by James Clapper to make changes to an executive order 12333 to make it more in line with what they were actually doing and how they were bastardizing and weaponizing the intelligence community so they could share this information with the bad actors, with people that did not need to see what we were able to see ourselves. That was, he made a modification to Executive Order 12333 on October 15th, I believe.
Actually, that was December 15th. Section 2.3 of Executive Order 12333.
December 15th. And this, of course, falls after it became evident. They realized that the Trump campaign was aware there was a spy in there. There was some serious changes.
And also for his lawyers and for members of the NSC who are going to be able to get all this evidence from all these different departments.
Repeating this, my bad.
Online at one central location, evidence on demand.
Right.
That's going to change the whole thing. And this is the date today, September 3rd, Ann, and you're leading the charge here by publicizing.
Let's get the information to the people. Let's get it out there. Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about, though, is the timeline here. Joshua, back in October, we saw some action being taken by James Clapper to make changes to an executive order 12333 to make it more in line with what they were actually doing and how they were bastardizing and weaponizing the intelligence community so they could share this information with the bad actors, with people that did not need to see what we were able to see ourselves. That was he made a modification to Executive Order 12333 on October 15th, I believe.
Actually, it was December 15th.
Sorry,
Section 2.3 of Executive Order
Sorry,
12333.
December 15th. And this, of course,
Section 2.33 of Executive Order 12333. Let's take a look. Here are the changes. The NSA is now able to share raw surveillance data with all 16 of the United States government's intelligence groups, including the CIA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and DEA. These agencies are able to submit requests for raw data pertaining to specific cases, and the NSA will approve or deny each request based on its legitimacy and whether granting access would put large amounts of private citizens' information at risk. Previously, the NSA would filter information for specific requests, eliminating the identities of innocent people and erasing irrelevant personal data. That's not the case any longer. The rule changes open up the NSA's trove of raw data to other intelligence agencies, making it easier for authorities to notice trends or spot troublesome communications. These changes have been a long time coming. That's nonsense. I was unable to find in my deep dive of this any indication that any of these changes were a long time coming. They say they were. The New York Times was the first outlet to say they were a long time coming, but they're not a long time coming. They did this so that the organizations would have a cover for the information that they had already had. Attorney General Loretta Lynch signed the new rules on January 3rd after the DNI James Clapper approved them in December. President Barack Obama's administration passed the changes in its final days in the White House. The FBI and other agencies use the systems laid out by the FISA Amendments Act and Executive Order 12333 in different ways, as noted by the New York Times. The warrantless surveillance program enabled by FISA allows FBI agents to search that program's database when investigating ordinary criminal cases. Meanwhile, the 12333 database is limited to agents and national security analysts working only on foreign intelligence or counterintelligence operations. Either way, if an agent sees evidence of an American committing a crime, that information is forwarded to the DOJ. Surveillance isn't the only sector where the U.S. government is attempting to keep up an increasingly connected world. For example, in December, the Department of Justice received expanded powers to search multiple computers, phones, and other devices on a single warrant. Sorry, not sorry. Amazing. Key part of this. Let's go back to the interview.
After it became evident, they realized that the Trump campaign was aware there was a spy in there. There was some serious changes. And then Loretta Lynch made some more changes in January. The former attorney general made some more changes and modifications to that same executive order prior to President Trump taking office. Joshua, in your opinion, was this an attempt by the previous administration to cover their tracks for the ill deeds they were doing?
My humble opinion is that it was a total definition of a cover-up.
Okay.
It's a total definition. Why else would you come at and retroactive events that you know are directly against and an affront to our constitutional rights? Why else would you go in and shift and make changes after the fact? Oh, it sounds to me almost like creating a letter of letting somebody go before you even go into the formal inquiry. I mean, these are
You mean like James Comey did with the Hillary Clinton email investigation? He cleared her before he cleared her.
Thank you.
Good point.
I mean, this is the way that they think. This is the way that they act. They don't believe that we are as citizens of America and U.S. Constitution have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Quite frankly, they want to see total control and dominance. And that's also what happened back in 9/11 when there was an opportunity to seize more power, and there was an opportunity for different agencies to seize more power, more control. That's what they sought after. And from that point, you have others that go to the controls and start managing that and desiring more and more power and more control. And this is the definition of such. And as you had brought that up, this is also why we have a separation. This is why we have the oversight that we're supposed to have, is to keep the checks and balances of power,
right,
which they were using, and absolute power does corrupt absolutely.
So essentially, they were taking advantage of our Fourth Amendment rights, right? They were stripping us of our own Fourth Amendment rights by changing that executive order to cover up the tracks of the fact that they were spying on somebody who had no reason to be spied upon. Is that accurate?
Yes, and what the dynamics there were, the modification that Mr. Clapper made on December 15th was to change their overall protocols of how they handled the information and who would be receiving that. So his action was to enable all 16 public intel agencies to receive it. Right. Of course, the FBI was already receiving it from the NSA prior to that. Right. We know that through a number of cross-referenced evidentiary records that are open source. So that was the motivation of doing that. And secondly, in January, more dissemination language was put in there on how to effectuate the transfer of that information.
So we're going to talk about this in greater detail coming up the next segment, but the information that phone call you got November 1st, Robert, and Joshua, when you were there in Norfolk, that sent Robert to New York to go to Trump Tower and meet with somebody high up in the president's campaign or in his campaign team. That essentially was the beginning of what we would now know as Admiral Rogers and General Michael Flynn going to visit with the president following that on November 17th. That same information where they were made aware of the 702 queries out of the NSA where they were basically spying on the president. The FBI's private contractors even were given access to the NSA's computer to make
private contractors like, I don't know, Fusion GPS. I bet we're going to find that out soon, too. Sorry to interrupt. This is just so juicy. I can't. Oh, my God. Thank God for these people. Thank God for them. Seriously. My goodness. This is amazing.
Make those queries themselves, which is completely against protocol. It's completely against the law at that time, which led up to the fact why they went to modify the executive order, because they knew they were going to have to atone for this. They knew they were going to have to answer for their sins.
I just want to add another thing here. You know, they'd have to atone for this. Yeah, absolutely, which is why they also brought in Steele when they lopped off these 702 query ability, thanks to Admiral Rogers asking for that, review. I mean, this. Do I even need to say that? I mean, I don't even think you guys are smart. You see what's happening here. You see it.
So I just want to, quickly as we wrap up, we have about a minute and a half left. Robert, General Michael Flynn and Admiral Rogers have been out as heroes essentially for making the president aware. You all were there on November 1st.
I agree as well.
And they came up after you on November 17th. Did you have any communications with those two gentlemen?
Well, let me say this because there's a limit at what we can talk about on this. I think both Joshua and I and two other people at least, and plus the person we met with at the Trump campaign, are most likely going to be testifying before Congress very soon. But Admiral Rogers was already ahead of the game. Now, how this information circulated, I don't know. I was working on another project with Joshua concerning the voter fraud, election integrity, and also a couple of other things that were pressing us at the time, just 7 days before the election, when I got the phone call. And that could have been circulated information. It might have come from Admiral Rogers and the NSA directly, or it may have come from one of our outside foreign sources, because we were told that these were plants or people that had communications with the bad actors in the GCHQ. Not that all GCHQ is bad, but a few, just like over here has been. And people from the UK and also from Russia. And then after that, on November 17th, Admiral Rogers went up there.
And also from Russia, non-Kremlin, remember. So the Oleg Deripaskas of the world. And I think that's so important because we were scratching our heads. Why does Donald Trump keep saying that Russia meddled in the election? Why is Devin Nunes saying that Russia meddled in the election? Why are these people saying this? We know that that's not true, as we're going through this process of trying to learn and poke through open source information and come to conclusions. That's why, because non-Kremlin, meaning outside of Putin's sphere, even though they're very close to Putin. I think they're trying to make the distinction here that it wasn't directed by Russia's government. So Oleg Deripaska is the oligarch. Listen, we know. I've been talking about Deripaska for like God knows how long. And the Waldman, Warner, Waldman and Warner and Steele and Deripaska, and then Assange coming into all that, and John Solomon's reporting. And, you guys, if you've been following along with the podcast on Fridays with the channel and Twitter, you guys know what I've been covering in regards to this stuff. So this is just, it's just confirmation, but at the same time, it's new information that we didn't have before. And it blows my mind. Why? I'm not surprised about it, but to hear that we're going to start to get more of this from people that were directly involved with uncovering it is so massive. God, thank goodness for Anne for grabbing this story. Thank goodness for these gentlemen for trusting Anne to grab this story. I know this is going to make its way up. It's going to start with us, guys. We're going to blast it. We're going to blast the heck out of it, and it'll move up. It'll get picked up by other outlets, and then these guys will finally be sitting on Fox News or wherever eventually, and that's the goal. And then, like he just said in front of Congress, listen, it needs to stop. I mean, enough is enough already. I think they're just frustrated, like the process is not going the way at the speed they think it should go. Public opinion is always important, as we talked about so many times, in terms of puppeteering and public opinion and what that means. That's why, again, this is like one of the most important things that I've brought to you in I don't know how long. And I'm not usually like this, and I don't usually ask you guys to share stuff unless you're really please share this. Seriously, this is amazing information. I was blown away sitting there listening to this last night. I couldn't even contain myself. I could barely get to sleep. And now I've listened to it now, like I said, 3 or 4 times. I could barely get to sleep last night because of this. I know I'm stupid, but hey, it is what it is. Let's listen.
Which prompted the move from the Trump Tower over to New Jersey. And he gave a lot more information too. And in Congress, a couple of other things that were pressing us at the time, just 7 days before the election, when I got the phone call. And that could have been circulated information. It might have come from Admiral Rogers and the NSA directly, or it may have come from one of our outside foreign sources, because we were told that these were plants or people that had communications with the bad actors in the GCHQ. Not that all GCHQ is bad, but a few, just like over here has been. And people from the UK and also from Russia. And then after that, on November 17th, Admiral Rogers went up there, which prompted the move from the Trump Tower over to New Jersey. And he gave a lot more information too. And in Congress, of course, he also, told the public what was going on.
All right, fantastic.
Wow. Wow. One more little clip, and then I'm going to go. And I don't want to. I want to sit here and talk to you about this. But I don't want to. It's 42 minutes now. This is so big. I was recording this video. You guys don't notice it, but I was recording this video and talking to you about something really, really important. And I noticed that it wasn't recording. So, okay, great. Let's try again.
But besides those FOIA requests, when you have people from the different agencies that handle the documents that are now coming forward or leaking those documents out, which Joshua and I, nor any of the 119 official people in the group deal with directly. If we did, we would be compelled to turn those people in, not knowing if their information is true or false or what side of the road they're on here. But certainly there are some shortcuts being taken now to get those documents front and center to the public without having to be delayed with the slow rolling that's been going on.
So in terms of report for the president, we have 119 folks that you're working with that are coming out from various agencies, including the Department of Treasury, the NSA, NSC, DOJ, FBI, just to name a few. Mm-hmm. Joshua, Tell me a little bit about what this report for the president is going to mean. How do people access it? What do they expect to find there, up to and including this broadcast and more like it?
Sure. Well, interviews like this, Ann, that you're helping us with and going through a deep dive into this information will be there on the website, as well as our reports, some of the information that we've turned in that has been made public. I know a lot of people were very interested in the memo and details, but I can tell you that these reports go into that even further.
Is he saying that his stuff helped Devin Nunes with the memo? Wow.
And into more deep dive. So we're going to have that broken down, able to disseminate that information so that people can access it from both the public and for those who need it to understand in the USG and other places.
It should be out by this Friday.
So Friday, we'll have this website, this repository open. Wow. I know I keep saying wow. I don't know how else to react to this because it really is, I mean, we've been hearing rumblings about this for a really long time, right? We've been hearing there's people that used to work in the intelligence community that are going to be coming out. There's people that, used to, we've been hearing about this, people that are going to come forward and testify or talk. DeGenevieve said it, Tonsig said it.
It should be up by this Friday.
That's
and there's
goal.
a login specifically for the president. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. How is he going to access those credentials? I'm just curious.
Well, that's something we can't really talk about.
Right. And at the same time, those that are close to the situation will also have access to that information as well.
Okay. Very important. Let's talk.
And that is important to mention. I mean, the people we're dealing with
Listen
on
closely.
that, facilitating this, we're making this available to anyone who wants to look at it. Certainly, there's people in the administration and in different government departments besides the president, too. And that's a very important part of this that will have access to it. But not only that, there's been a lot of information that our group and other groups and individuals have given to Congress and that have also been given to Mr. Horowitz, the DOJ OIG, and other agencies and departments that when you look at all the documentation and when we post all of that on these websites available for the public and available for other agencies to look at, both the agencies that oversee some of the parties I just mentioned, then it's going to be pretty clear that they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to take action. Because if not, anybody that doesn't take action, that receives incontrovertible evidence, they're going to be guilty of obstruction of justice themselves. And I don't think they want to gamble with the momentum that's going on right now and is growing by the day, that they would take that chance not to act and either refer or take direct action, depending on what their role is in government.
Josh, we have a comment.
I do. Information's power, Ann.
Yes.
And we, as patriots and as oath keepers of the Constitution, we made an oath to defend the Constitution, but against both foreign and domestic enemies. And we know that that information is power. We want that information in the hands of the people, as we want and elected our president now, because he looked at us and also made an oath that he would give it for the people. And we want this information in the hands of the people to make decisions for the people, not the oligarchy and those who are using it for their own means, their own desires, or for their own illicit gain. But no, for the people. Just as you had referenced before, just like those 6 fighting veterans of Benghazi.
Amazing. Listen, I'm going to cut it here and let you guys, there's another 20 minutes or so in the interview, let you guys take a listen to it. I mean, you really need to listen to it. The link will be below in the description box. Thank you to these guys for stepping up and doing what they're doing, being like representatives for now of these other 119 really what seem like very credentialed, high-level former intelligence community folks stepping forward to do the right thing here. Again, I know, wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, the whole interview, because it really is that big. I mean, I can't, there's no way to I can't, there's going to be much, much, much more coming out of this. Much more. And Friday, again, that website will be going live. So you guys can get on there and do it. Again, share this, please, because it needs eyes and ears. It needs traction. These folks need you to take this information that they're giving you and share it everywhere. It is the only way to get them. We are so powerful. I don't think you guys really understand how powerful you are and how powerful you are in terms of being able to get the truth out there and being able to get stuff in front of people and share it far and wide, so that this way, when something goes viral, everybody sees it. It gains the weight, the legs it needs to be able to move up the ladder. God bless Anne and these guys for doing this. I think this was a fantastic interview. I'm just a little bit on what I'm doing. I've been very quiet lately. I've been very, very, very busy working on some really awesome projects, which I hope to be able to share with you very soon. I am taking a trip to our nation's capital this week, and I will be there. And just coincidentally, Anne will be there too. So I'll be meeting with her, having some fun, talking to you guys about some stuff. And I've got some other stuff that I'm doing down there too. There's some really cool stuff happening. We're doing things, we're moving. If you guys appreciate the work I do and you'd like to become a patron, I'd be honored to have you. No matter what anybody says, the people who voluntarily support me using Patreon make it possible for me to do this kind of stuff, as my job. I am working so hard for you, for information, to get this stuff out there. It's not like I don't sit around on my butt with my feet up, okay? So I really appreciate those of you who have taken the time to support me via Patreon, and I would be honored to have more of you join me in my Patreon family. In addition, if you would like to just give me a one-time donation, which is so helpful, you can do so using the PayPal address in the description box below. Follow me on Twitter, Gab, BitChute, Steemit, DTube, Real Video. And please also give Ann Vanderseel a follow. I know I'm talking today, but this is so important. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this video. Have a fantastic day, and I will be in touch very, very soon.